Hello all. Here we are at Spring Mill State Park, a few miles outside of Mitchell, Indiana. It's early November 2022. I think this is the 7th today. We're looking at the entrance to Hamer Cave. Water flowing out of it. This cave has been used by the white settlers for over 200 years. It's powered a grist mill, including the one that was built in the village, the 3-story limestone one. That was a very beautiful, substantial grist mill that was built, I believe, in 1817. And still standing in part of the pioneer village that's part of this state park. And I understand that, let me get a slightly different view of it from here. I believe that the Lehigh Portland Cement Company, near Mitchell, they've been using the discharge from the spring since 1902 to cool their brick kilns, or their limestone kilns, whatever. They're making cement, actually, I believe. And they still do today. It still flows to them, even though it's also dammed up here and used for the mill flume. We go farther, we got a little house there that I think has something to do with probably the Lehigh boys and how they regulate water. We're going to take a step down here and look at the dam. Then I'm going to walk you down this short trail back to the mill and let you see that and see the limestone piers that the mill flume, which is what carries the water to the mill wheel, what they sit on. It's very peaceful today. I've only seen 3 people in the village, and I think 3 people on another trail who just kind of went above me a little bit ago, because the village is closed for the winter. The buildings are locked and no interpreters here, so it's just, I've pretty well got the place to myself, and the leaves are off the trees and the water's running. It's very peaceful. I'm sorry for the bumpy steps, but I'll just walk everybody down here. I say everybody because if this turns out well, it goes on YouTube, and if it doesn't, I'll just keep it on my computer for myself. But everybody is you YouTube viewers if you actually view it. This will be a short video, but it's kind of like a pool here. And just listen to that water. It's going to be really good when we get past this little dam. Very easy trail if you're in the village to make. It's right up here. Not hard at all. Just absorb that sound for a few minutes. All this is very cool, clear spring water from Hamer Cave. Flows year round. There is what they call that's just a chute. I know it's just got a pipe in it now that I don't think it probably did 200 years ago. But that pipe will probably help it flow a little bit better as the boards rot. And it's going to slowly go down the stream. And here you can see the flume is beginning, the wheels. Not the wheels, oh silly me, the limestone piers. You'll see better as they get closer. And I believe that the current mill and the limestone piers it stands on, they are literally 205 years old. They were built under the ownership of the Bullitt brothers, who were merchants of Louisville. They lived in the Louisville area on a plantation, I believe. And I forget if either a mother or a grandmother of theirs was a sister to Patrick Henry, the governor of Virginia, who said liberty or death in 1775. So this is a lot of history, a lot of ties to the upper South and Virginia here in southern Indiana. Take another look back. Just absorb that beautiful running water sound. You could think you're in the Smokies Mountains. The trail's not too bad. There's a little uphill right at the end to view the cave, going up some steps. But if you're not particularly feeble or something, you should be able to handle the trail pretty easily. As we get a little bit farther, we'll be able to see the mill rising in the distance. The sun's kind of on it, but you can see it right there in the middle of the field of view. It would be nice if all the leaves had been on the trees like they were last month when I was here, but then there'd be people here too, and it'd be difficult to make a video this long without being interrupted by other people going up and down the trail. Just going to pause for another look back here for a moment. It's a wonderful sound. And obviously you can start to see cabins here and the piers, the limestone piers that are still original from 205 years ago, from 1817 when the mill was opened. And of course the mill had to be totally restored in the 1930s when they made this a state park, as it had been laying unused for decades, and I think the roof was probably gone and maybe some of the interior wood, I don't know exactly what all, but the limestone walls are 2.5 foot thick, and they were still here even after those, all the years of neglect, and are still here today after over 2 centuries. And that's, I don't know how tall that is, but that's it goes up at the second story, so that pier I would guess is probably 15 or more feet tall. Perhaps 20, I don't know, I'm a little distance from it. I don't exactly have a tape measure with me. We'll walk right up towards the mill. I might point out a feature or two of it, and then I'll shut this down. And some of the cabins here are original to the site, others are brought in from nearby and reconstructed on the site. But the mill obviously is original because it's sitting exactly where it did when it was built over 200 years ago. Sadly, the mill wheel no longer operates. On my visit earlier this year, the miller told me that back in October of 2021, the mill wheel, the shaft that the wheel turns on, broke. And it was actually while he was grinding. And they haven't found, I guess, an oak tree to cut down and season and make to replace it yet, but they're working on that. So hopefully sometime in the next year or so they'll have the mill wheel operational again, because it did work until a little over a year ago. And they actually have newer stones in there than the original, so they had to replace those, but they still grind cornmeal that you can buy right here at this mill. I've seen it grind many times. I've eaten cornmeal from this very mill that's 200 plus years old. My ancestors who lived in the Mitchell Tree Township almost 200 years ago may have brought their corn here to have it ground. I may be walking the same ground they did, only 200 years later. Because I have Cox and Burton ancestors who lived in southern part of Lawrence County 200 years ago. They also put a little water-powered sawmill on this place. We'll just walk up to the piers and what is the front door before I shut this down. Actually, let's take a look at the mill wheel also, just for a moment. That is a huge wheel. And these are some huge piers. I mean, my hand is, I would estimate that's probably 4 foot wide. And it's at minimum 15 feet tall, probably 20. Yes, indeed. Not sure what that is hanging there from it. But anyway, step out here. And this is the main entrance. Pets are prohibited because this is a state historic site. As they say, a little pets prohibited on the front door. And step off a little bit more to get this view. It's a nice old mill. And there is the flume, the way out of the village, and 3 guys that were up on trails just kind of messing around. I think they're Mexicans. And here's some other cabins. And this will lead you out of the village. But the one last little thing I'll point out, this curiosity that doesn't really have much to do with the water, but if you'll notice the corners of a hewn stone building, this building is approximately 2.5 foot thick of hewn limestone mortared together, just like it was, or exactly like it was 200 years ago, because it hasn't changed. But it should have a sharpish corner. But if you notice down low, it does not. I can get my out of the shadow. It is a rounded block. I've read that is actually from hogs that used to be allowed to run wild in the village, and that they would basically rub their backs and shoulders and stuff on that until they wore away the limestone over many years of doing that. And I thought that was very fascinating, because as you go up, it's all square cornered like it should be, with those bottom roughly 3-ish blocks. Apparently the hogs rub those down. And you can learn a lot more about this if you ever visit the park, not just by walking around, but by buying the small booklet they had for sale called The Village That Slept a While, I believe. I don't have it in front of me, but I have a copy at home. Interesting little book that will tell you a lot of what I just said. And that was a fun little walk, and we're just going to shut this down. Joe Putnam out.